Greetings, hello, and welcome. In this series of videos, I will explain some of the core concepts of Sanctum, Age of Aftermath, and its setting. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the world of Sanctum itself and the different types of adventuring environments encountered within it. Before the collapse, Sanctum used to be a planet with a long history of civilization. With over 400,000 years of humanoid high cultures, Sanctum stood at the center of an intergalactic alliance and was home to trillions of inhabitants from all over the galaxy. After the end of everything, Sanctum civilization is just now slowly beginning to rebuild, with an overall global humanoid population of around 7 to 9 billion, the majority of which is clustered in the overcrowded megacities or their expansive border sprawls. With so much of civilization living so concentrated, it leaves vast swathes of land unclaimed and unexplored. The unwillingness to move out of the expensive and soul-draining cities is not just because of the lack of comfort and quality of life in the wilderness, but also because the landscape outside of the city barely even resembles the historical records of Sanctum that have survived the cataclysm anymore. With all of that in mind, let's begin. First up, we should talk about the megacities. As largest centers of population, the megacities present a treasure trove of adventuring possibilities. Just because city life is more civilized than life in the wilderness, it doesn't mean it's any less dangerous. It just means that you could get shot while on public transit and are still expected to show up to your minimum wage job because you need to pay rent. The megacities are riddled with organized and unorganized crime, and vigilante justice is a commonly accepted way of handling things. Officials tend to be corrupt and in the pockets of corporations, and those that aren't rarely make it far. While money moves the market, in the megacity it's debt that moves the masses. Everyone is short on money, and those in power like to keep it that way. Can't complain about life if you're too exhausted from trying not to go hungry or homeless. While those with the right skills obviously can pursue the proper paths to success in life, the majority of people in the megacity try their best to take as many shortcuts as possible up the career ladder. Mercenary work is the most likely and profitable employment type that an adventurer can find in the city, be it in the employment for a corporation, a syndicate, a gang, or one of the many information brokers that deal with opportunities and chances to either win big or lose everything. Those that can repeatedly prove themselves in their line of work quickly can grow in reputation and street cred, allowing for bigger and bigger paydays. Too much fame can be a detriment, however, and the brightest legends tend to fall down the hardest. The megacities offer themselves for cyberpunk-inspired city campaigns, with the opportunity for players to work themselves up from a nobody to a true legend of the city. Next up, we'll talk about the Outlands. The largest stretches of Sanctum's surface nowadays are classified as Outlands. They are relatively barren environments with only low, shrub-like vegetation appearing in all of Sanctum's warped climate zones. With a lot of work, settlers were able to create livable pockets in the inhospitable environment. But about twice as often as they succeed, those that come out here only find death. Off of the superhighways that run through the Outlands like rivers of concrete, light, and hypercapitalism, much older streets and roads cut through the landscape. Some of these roads stem from the temporal storms and haven't been traveled for hundreds of years. A far more common find than lived-in settlements are the many ruins that scatter the landscape, no matter how far away from civilization one goes. The temporal storms transported many anachronistic locations and structures from all over Sanctum's long history and dropped them at the end of time. While most structures didn't fare too well in the whole process and are nowadays nothing more than crumbled stone and rusted metal, occasionally home to some passing creature, some of the buildings found in the Outlands are far more than they seem from the outside. The most notable remnant from the temporal storms is the massive amount of signal antennas and radio towers scattered on the most elevated areas of the Outlands. The towers are so common that they earned the nickname Iron Trees of the Outlands. The entire radio chaser movement has formed to study these antennas and the strange signals they sometimes emit. But temporal anomalies, mysterious frequencies, and some latent radiation aren't the only dangers found in the Outlands. Everything that has adapted to living in an environment like this should be treated with caution. This works for any strange creature encountered, but also for any person or group found out while exploring. You never know what's underneath that skin. Not everyone in the Outlands has a vehicle, and travel on foot, even over larger distances, is still a common way to get around, especially in remote places where roads are either not common or simply too poorly maintained for usage. Long forgotten bunkers, anachronistic structures, ancient ruins, bandit hideouts, or mysterious landmarks are just waiting for a group of brave or foolish adventurers to come looking for trouble or an early death. The Outlands are the perfect staging ground for exploration-style campaigns with a post-apocalyptic science fiction feel. Moving on to the verdant wilds. While time can mean decay and death, it can also mean growth and rebirth. Not all regions wrecked by the temporal storms were turned into almost dead wastelands. Certain swathes of land were returned to their almost primordial natural state. Trees standing thousands of feet tall, with roots larger than most vehicles or buildings. Fields of verdant green plants, covering ancient sites of destruction. Herds of unmutated wildlife, grazing in the shadows of canopies of plants unlike anything else found anywhere else on the planet. The verdant wilds are a region of mystery and myth. While corporations appreciate the rapidly growing plants in the region for their logging efforts, the strange nature of these areas makes any kind of taming or civilizing efforts particularly hard. It is believed that many of the areas where the verdant wilds are deepest had close connections to the realm of the Fae before the collapse, which could be why they are so commonly found amidst the gargantuan trees. The trees and their massive root hollows growing over ancient ruins also have become shelter to many species and creatures that were long extinct before the temporal storms, now having been revived thanks to anachronistic displacement. Those folk that have taken up residence in the harsh natural environment of the verdant wilds find themselves in constant conflict, not just in defending their home against the capitalistic greed of the corporations, but also against the very creatures whose home they are trying to defend. Many settlers that come to live in the verdant wilds return to a more simplistic style of living, forming communes that produce their own food and equipment and trading scientific knowledge against long lines of tradition and oral history. The largest interest for explorers and adventurers in the verdant wilds aren't just the strange abandoned scientific facilities and chances of stumbling upon ancient displaced temples full of gold and curses, but also the massive gaping entrances to Sanctum's underground that often can be found in the regions with the densest plant growth. The verdant wilds are excellently suited for post-apocalyptic fantasy adventures that mix superstitious mysticism with ancient technology. The Wordcrest region. The lands near the Crater Edge Mountains are rich in natural resources, and as such have a great interest for those with the means to acquire them. Gargantuan factory fortresses lie in the shadows of the atmosphere-breaching mountain range, and act as base of origin for corporate mining operations or expeditions into the relatively unexplored surroundings. The region's close proximity to the static worlds causes wireless communications and frequencies to act up and become unreliable. As such, locations that aren't connected to the highly valuable and protected landline communications network solely rely on word of mouth for trading information with the outside world. It is exactly this disconnect with the more civilized regions of Sanctum that makes the Wordcrest so attractive for those that wish to escape the constant surveillance of digital eyes. Proximity to the words doesn't just have consequences in terms of digital communications, however. It regularly happens that minor temporal tempests and word storms crest the mountaintops and make contact with the region below before they disperse. Those that have lived here for a while know the signs when to seek shelter, but for newcomers this can quickly become a deadly experience. While sparsely settled beyond the factory fortresses, minor road outposts, scientific research bases and the occasional mad settlers, the region holds the highest concentration of members of the technology cults. High up in the Crater Edge Mountains, the iron citadels of the technology cults stand and hold silent vigil over a world long past its prime. The clergy of the cults is highly sought after by those that have ancient technology to maintain or are in search of tech support that borders the spiritual and esoteric. The citadels, while often archaic in outside appearance, are equipped with end-of-the-line defenses and technologies thought to have been long lost. The walls of the citadels hold many artifacts and treasures that corporations would be willing to go to war over. The unstable nature of reality near the static worlds causes many local anomalies of the gravitational, temporal or dimensional sorts, which are often accompanied by even weirder creatures that use the instabilities in reality and time to slip into the material realm. Research into the effects of the static worlds on our reality has drawn many scientists into the area in search of answers, either for private or corporate reasons. The WordCrest region is well suited for either sci-fi Weird West style campaigns or tense social intrigues in the cramped confines of the crowded settlements of the factory fortresses. And finally, the static worlds. The static worlds is the name of the region inside the crater where Sanctum was struck by the last of its 3 moons. The region emanates a field called the word static that blocks any device from connecting to the digital dimension and can cause malfunctions in technological items. No video, audio or other kind of recording can be made inside the static worlds, and the entire region is considered highly dimensionally and temporally unstable. For the general public, the topic of the static worlds is not really of great interest, as the majority of details about it are either being suppressed or downplayed by the corporate media. The majority of the public doesn't even know that there is a massive crater in the planet, thinking the static world just to be a gargantuan basin surrounded by tall mountains that is cloaked in a strange digital anomaly. Any kind of research into the static worlds accessible by the public is heavily doctored, and any privately published findings are quietly censored. Inside the countless valleys of the static worlds, remnants of the entirety of Sanctum's long history can be found. Pockets of time flung out of the cataclysm and crash landed here. Those that explore the worlds and live to tell the tales speak of strange landscapes akin to alien planets, fantastical kingdoms of times long past, hidden away between jagged mountaintops, and sights so strange that they rend the mind of anyone that witnesses them firsthand. These tales also don't tend to make it too far though, given that once again, the corporations do their best to quell any knowledge about the worlds. The static worlds are a great region for late game campaigns. Exploring the region is treacherous at the best of times, what one will find never being a certainty due to the region's unstable nature. On top of that, pushing in too far or asking too many questions quickly can land one on a corporate hit list. Those that do push on, however, will find that